Look at your handout for just a moment. Philippians chapter 3, verse 13. Brethren, it's at the top. I do not count myself to have apprehended. But one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind, and reaching forward to those things which are ahead. I press toward the goal, the Greek word teleos. I press towards the goal, the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. At the bottom of your handout, a further definition of telos: completion, fulfillment, ultimate purpose, or the end for which something exists. In Paul's context, telos isn't about a finish line of life or retirement. It's about reaching a mature purpose. How many of you in here are mature? There's probably a few that haven't grown up yet. I love this topic of distractions. A couple of great quotes. Oswald Chambers says, the great enemy of the life of faith in God is not sin, but the good which is not good enough. Charles Spurgeon said, if you're not seeking the kingdom first, you're not seeking it at all. C.S. Lewis, he says, put first things first and we get second things thrown in. Put second things first and we lose both first and second. He also said distraction is the enemy of devotion. When heaven is your focus, earth loses its pull. Now, the obvious thing is most of you probably have one of these. Don't pull it out. This is the number one distraction. No matter your age, you get phone calls. I always put mine on silent when I come to church. You guys all got yours on? Some of you, like Pastor Darrell, he leaves his in the car wherever he goes. You can never get him on the phone. So he's never distracted from his phone. You don't want to be distracted, just put it on the shelf. Don't carry it around with you. I've got a list of 10 things. Busyness. If Satan can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. Entertainment overload. A lot of you, like me, watched the World Series and were thrilled with the outcome last night. Comfort and convenience can be a distraction. Comparison, worry, anxiety, materialism. Hey, the list goes on. People-pleasing, past failures and regrets, success and pride, religious routine. Distraction isn't always evil. Sometimes it's just anything that dulls our devotion, divides our heart, or detours our pursuit of Christ. So from your handout this morning, let nothing distract you. Rejoice, beware, and have confidence. I highlighted those in the body of the text. Rejoice, beware, and have confidence. When I am able to focus on my goal, which is the upward call, the call of God in my life, or on my life. As a matter of fact, I love the way that Paul puts it in Colossians chapter 3, I think it is. Yeah, chapter 3, verse 2. Set your mind on things that are above, not on things that are on earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. But when Christ, who is our life, appears, then you will also appear with him in glory. The whole idea of the upward calling and of the goal and of this passage is to understand that we have a heavenly purpose. The upward call, in one sense, I always laugh at people, well, the man upstairs. Man, theologically, that may be right. I don't know. Of course, when Stephen was being stoned, the curtain parted and there was heaven. So, it's not so much a place that I can identify. But it is that a heavenly call that God has purpose for you in your life. He has purpose for you and I in our life. Paul enters into this passage to define what that means. Verse 1 from your handout. Finally, my brethren, rejoice in the Lord. For me to write the same things to you is not tedious, but it's safe for you. Kind of a odd way the English words that. Even in the Greek, it's a little confusing, but basically says, I'm writing this to you for your safety. I'm writing this to you as a safety plan. It's so important that you understand that first, rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord. The first thing I need to do is never lose my joy. Once I lose my joy, the purpose tends to be diminished in my life. It isn't that I always have to be happy doing things, but I have to understand that my joy is rooted in something other than the environment around me or my circumstances, and that's why Paul is going to drive that point home. So on the graph on your handout, verse number 1, rejoice. The meaning is joy is both protection and perspective. I can look at the same thing you look at, and you maybe see something different than I do. I have to understand from the perspective that God is allowing things to take place that I can take joy in His presence. The theological meaning, my safety is rooted in the joy of saving faith. And the personal application, guard your joy. Rejoice in the Lord, not in the results, reputation, or religion. We find a certain amount of enjoyment out of the different things that we do. But I have to always remember the value of the thing that I'm finding joy in. I can have enjoyment in watching a baseball game and I'm bummed out if my team loses. I understand all of that. So I'm not going to base my life on whether my team wins or loses. That joy is going to be pretty shallow because it's going to be based on circumstances all the time. But instead, I'm going to guard my joy and understand that Paul is giving me this information to protect me, to safeguard me from taking a nosedive in my faith. Guard your joy. Rejoice in the Lord, not in results, reputation, religion, or anything else. It's so easy to be distracted by the things that really do not matter. Starting in verse 2, Paul says, beware. Beware of dogs. What? I love my dog. Well, obviously, he can't be talking about Mickey. God knows Mickey real well. He's my Velcro dog. He wouldn't hate my dog. Beware of dogs. Now remember, Paul's writing to the born-again Jews. Dogs were the Gentiles in the Jewish mind, or those who are proselytizing against the faith. Beware of dogs, beware of evil workers, beware of the mutilation. Those are the ones that are requiring that you be circumcised or you're not saved. That's all that means. Verse 3, for we are the circumcision who worship God in spirit, rejoice in Jesus Christ, and have no confidence in the flesh. So on your handout, verse 2 and 3, beware of religious performance over a relationship. The theological meaning, when we make anything besides Christ as our goal, we miss the goal of life. All through life we have goals. Goals to lose weight, goals to get an education, goals to get a driver's license, goals to, so we have weekly, daily goals in our life. The problem is when I put my temporal goals on this earth ahead of my goal of being in relationship to the Lord, then I become distracted by that, and that goal of having my relationship with Christ is in jeopardy. The personal application: don't let spiritual pride or religious performance replace Christ. I think in the church, unfortunately, we think in performing so others will see who we are. Remember last week I talked about the imposter syndrome, that it's so easy to fall into, I know what I'm supposed to look like as a Christian, as a believer, so since I'm really not doing that and living that way, but I can pose, I can be an imposter. So many people go through life trying to be something that they aren't, that they are not. God says, no, I love you the way you are. Let me reshape you and reform you. You are a new creature in me when you believe in me. Finally, in verse 4 through 6, Paul says, though I also might have confidence in the flesh. If anyone else thinks he may have confidence in the flesh, I more so, circumcised on the 8th day, of the stock of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew of Hebrews, concerning the law, a Pharisee, concerning the zeal, persecuting the church, concerning righteousness, which is in the law, blameless. I mean, Paul had it all. He was born in the right country. He was a Sabra. He was born in the right country. His heritage was fully Jewish. He was a Pharisee. He followed the law. He kept the commandments. He had a spiritual resume that was really out of sight. The problem is we tend to elect pastors and board members and church leaders based on their resume. We're so used to turning in the resume. All of us in here at one time or another probably had to turn in a resume. How absolutely truthful was that resume? Well, let me put it another way. It wasn't that it wasn't truthful, it just wasn't complete. Because you're only telling the good stuff. You want to hide the bad stuff. And so like Paul here, he said, man, I could qualify for being a right-on person. Look at me. Look at all the things I've done. Look at my resume. I'm righteous. I'm keeping the law. I'm passionate. I'm zealous. But he starts off in verse 4 and says, I also might have confidence in the flesh. He's following along to what he said in verse 3, do not have confidence in the flesh. From your handout, confidence. Don't let your spiritual resume replace dependence on Christ. Theological meaning, the flesh will always want to replace our true telos, our goal of being conformed to the image of Christ. Personal application, the goal of life isn't success, status, or even service. It's Christ himself. I've known so many wonderful believers in the past in my life, and I love them dearly, but their whole life was built on serving the Lord in the church in all these different places. It's at the heart. I mean, it's a gift of ministry, a gift of service. But even our spiritual gifts, if we apply them the wrong way, we become enthralled with what the gift is and how people appreciate it. We then substitute that gift or the service above our relationship with Jesus. If I'm not serving because my heart's serving because of Jesus, then I'm serving for the wrong reason and the wrong purpose. I had one day this last week, I really got depressed about something, and a friend of mine, I was texting them, or actually we were doing a Marco Polo back and forth, and if you don't know what that is, I'm not going to explain it. We were just sharing back and forth, and they made the comment that they had moved away from their source, capital S. That's all the person said. I thought about that. I said, you know what? I've moved away from my source of joy, my source of power. My source of joy isn't my marriage, isn't the church, isn't my YouTube channel, isn't all the other things in my life, isn't my golf game, isn't the Dodgers. My source, capital S. And I think that's Paul's whole message here. I have to be so careful that I never move away from the real deal, which is the capital S source, is the presence of Jesus Christ in my life. If anything interferes with that, it's easy to get disappointed about all the other things in life. We've all been disappointed within the last week or month or whatever, The older we get, dealing with those issues. Life is full of those issues. But Paul's whole point is that I have to be careful to always rejoice. Notice what it says there in verse 1. Rejoice in the Dodgers. No, wait a minute. Let me double check that verse. Oh, no. Rejoice in the lunch that I'm going to go to after church. Rejoice in my tax refund. Rejoice in my health. Everything on earth, there's a reason not to rejoice, unfortunately. Finally, that puts a thumbtack on the board. Finally, everyone at the village church this morning and everybody that hears this message, rejoice in the Lord. Amen. That's what I rejoice in.